has sex with women. What? That's what you just said, isn't it?
Yeah, you were saying that's been said on that. Do you remember when you whispered, you didn't hear, and you whispered into the mic?
Oh my god, right.
Good.
Scissoring.
Can you pull up your pants?
Hello, and welcome to the
please?
Philosopod. Excuse me, episode 12. With me, James, and with me today we have a lot here. We have
Ted.
Kyle.
Bryn.
Gareth.
Ryan.
Sasha Gray.
say it again.
Connor.
There we go.
Every time.
Every time. Right. So today we're going to be talking about a very controversial topic, and that is whether we believe, not whether it is, whether God exists, and whether we should believe in God or follow a religion. And this could entail God, like God or Allah, or any other religious figures that you follow.
Sorry. Odin.
Right.
Swallow
First of all, we'll go around the people and talk about whether they believe in God and whether, like, just a basic view on whether you should believe in God or not. So we'll start with Kane.
I personally don't, just based on the lack of evidence in itself, and I'm not a fan of religion as a whole. Like, I'm not against people believing in it, but I personally wouldn't, just because of the concept it causes. I feel it causes more negativity than positivity.
I don't believe in God, but I respect and envy people that have faith. However, I'm not a huge fan of organised religion.
What?
I believe in a God. I believe in the Christian God.
Sorry.
And I will believe in it up until the day that they have concrete proof that there is no God. I think everyone is entitled to what they should believe in, if it is respectable and it is can be backed up with any argument. But I do believe that we have a definite purpose in this life.
Okay. Brendan?
I'm not religious, but I wish that I was. I don't know, I used to be religious when I was a kid, but I kind of logicked my way out of it because I don't know. Yeah.
I like that.
And Gareth, I'm sure we know what you're going to say.
Yes, I personally am not religious on the grounds that there isn't really any evidence for it, and the burden of proof doesn't rest with those. It's burden of proof rests with one who makes the largest claim, and those the religious make the largest claim that there is a benevolent being watching over the entire universe and all of creation. So on that basis, and basis no verifiable evidence, I disagree with religion and believe that religion is a force for evil in the world.
Does your ilk also?
I do, honestly.
Right, Ryan, what do you think?
I'm agnostic.
Okay.
What's that mean?
It means you like
I think
the
we
idea
got a
that
cream
there is
for
a
that. Hey, what's that from?
It's
Dawn?
You're
kind of
undecided.
like-
You don't know.
It's
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of like
Hot fuzz, you shit.
you like the idea that there is a God,
I've got cream for
but
that.
you don't
There's no concrete
believe in
evidence.
it.
So
I can't say no,
agnostic's
there
like
is a
on the
God.
fence. It's like saying I can't say for 100% certain that there is no. Really, in seriousness, every atheist is agnostic, because to be an atheist you have to accept there's no evidence, but there's no evidence either way.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, an agnostic lives their life believing they're agnostic. An atheist lives their life believing they're an atheist, even though they make the claim that, and they make the acceptance that they can't ultimately disprove it.
But
So-
pretty much an atheist believes there is no God, an agnostic is undecided whether there is or isn't one.
Yeah.
I don't
There's no
think
evidence either way.
I don't think either side can make a final judgment, because you can make intermediate judgments, which we have in this life. Everything we know, we make intermediate judgments all the time. I don't think we'll ever have the chance to make a final judgment. I think people would be wrong to say, I know this for sure. I mean, unless you have evidence, sure. But I think we all make intermediate judgments, whether you're an atheist, agnostic, or
Do you think
or
that,
theist.
are you more of an eschatological, I'll explain what that means, but like a theorist where basically you can't prove the existence of God now, but in the future when you inevitably die and you go to heaven and you then perceive God, then that for you is evidence.
Yeah, well, I think evidence for everyone is kind of, some of it can be subjective, some of it is anecdotal. For example, if you look at, let's say, I've seen a miracle. I mean, there's two kinds of people in this world. There are those who see signs and symbols and these kind of miracles, or you just believe that everything is a coincidence and that there is no kind of meaning to that. And I think when I see a miracle that can't be explained by any force of nature, then that, to me, that is anecdotal evidence that there is maybe a God.
I struggle with the idea that evidence is subjective.
I'm saying some evidence can be
is
subjective,
I
and
disagree with
that can be difficult
it's
because
the way you believe.
Because in a court of law, for example, witness testimony is now not seen as verifiable evidence. It's not seen as evidence. It's seen as something which can be used as a factor.
well, if you provide something anecdotal, that is hard to
It's the
prove.
it's the same way, for example, that if someone says, I was abused as a child, therefore I think everyone is abused as children, their anecdotal evidence tells them that is a common thing.
Yeah, and I will concede that is an extremely difficult thing to prove and to use as in an argument. But if that's happened to me, that's what I will believe.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone can change that.
For me personally, I mean, it is a personal thing, but it has to be verifiable. It has to be something that you can see and you can test, you can prove every time you carry out a test. If it has to be something which is concrete and something which doesn't, and if it changes, it's only because new evidence comes up.
But are you just saying that because you haven't experienced something that would make you question?
Well, I find it quite ironic how those who are the most religious, usually born into religious families, they're the ones who experience miracles. Why don't I? Why doesn't God come down to me and show
Because
me
you
a
don't
miracle?
perceive it as a miracle.
Yeah, but then I fit scientific evidence and an explanation to something which Carl just said. I've seen a miracle which science can't explain.
Stuff
If I
does
saw
happen
that
to
same
people.
miracle and I can fit scientific evidence to it, then
That's
surely
a
that's not a miracle.
possibility. It's
Stuff
a
does happen to
possibility.
people who aren't already
It could
religious.
still be a
Indeed.
miracle. You can't. Yeah, I feel like if there is a possible, keyword being possible, scientific explanation, then there's still the possibility of it being a miracle.
It's a possibility, but it rests on the underlying belief that you accept the faith of a miracle as opposed to the evidence behind the action, and that is subjective. How you make that decision, whether you make that on a faith basis. For example, you can look at the laws of gravity, and you can either make the scientific rationale that they have been there as a constant since the dawn of time, what have you, or you make the religious rationale that God put them in motion. That's why they're so exact. So there's a different way of perceiving evidence, but then again, the evidence itself needs to be verifiable, repeatable for it to be taken seriously, in my opinion. However, that doesn't discount your personal experience. It just means that personal experience alone, for me, is not a universal convincing factor.
I can understand that. I can perfectly understand that.
There's a I don't know how well this is going to link, but you said in your opening point that you are going to believe there is a God until there is evidence that there isn't a God. And there is a philosopher, and I can't remember which one, but it's either Hick, Hare,
I think
or
it's
well done.
Well, I know Albert Camus. He said the quote, "I'd rather live my life believing there is a God to die to find out there isn't, than to live my life believing there isn't a God than to find out there is."
Like if you
Yeah,
died
that's
and went to heaven,
Mhm.
for example, and you got there, you spent your entire life believing there was a God and dedicating part of yourself to God, and you get to heaven and it's not true, do you still think that it was worth having faith, or do you think that you wish that you had lived a life as an atheist instead?
Well, to that I say, I think obviously life is a very temporary thing if you, aren't a Christian or anyone religious. Life is only temporary on the basis of how long you live on earth, right? I think I see the point you've made. I think whatever makes you happy in this life, and whatever you find, because everyone has their individual purpose,
Yeah.
whether they tie that to a religion or belief. Whether you tie it to a religion or belief, right? I just think that no matter if you go to heaven or not, I believe that if you follow that purpose, you can find satisfaction in
So
that.
you follow a more sort of falsifiable way of believing.
You could,
like
you could say that.
There's verification that's falsifiable.
Mhm.
So you're living on the basis that I'm going to still believe in it as long as it's still a possibility that it's there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how
And,
would you...
obviously, if I believed, if I said my testimony of a certain gospel is only reliant on that, that would be ignorant. because that's not. It's not the reason why.
Yeah.
I've built a belief. I'm pretty sure, though I can't evidence it.
Would you
I can't quantify it.
say your belief is? I'm going to say correct in the sense that you, as your faith, you are making the claim that this certain God exists. By that very merit, you're also saying that the thousands of other gods that have come before our generation and the other gods that exist on the planet, they are false.
Mm-hmm.
So the claim, my question really is this: are you making the claim that your God is the only God, the right God, and therefore everyone else is wrong?
Well, that depends on what your God is. I mean, I don't think everyone.
I'm talking about universally.
I think there is a. I think my belief is that there is a God.
But is he
and there is so. It might not be.
Let's say there is a supremely powerful being.
Yes.
And in the past, people may have picked out different attributes of that and assigned each attribute to a god, much like the Greeks or the Romans, like god of the underworld, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Whereas we now think of a whole.
It's more monotheistic,
like all-in-one god.
I think it matters phenomenally so what god that is.
I think
Because if we're talking about the Christian God, we're talking about they persecute on a different basis than someone we're talking about traditional Islamic God.
A lot of the philosophical arguments I have brought with me today are based on the Christian belief of the definition of God, and I'll get into that after you've.
So that's my only problem is that with every generation that comes, people always say this God is the correct God. I mean, you look to the Romans, you look to the Greeks, the Celts, they all say my God is the correct God.
Well, okay, human nature will dictate that everyone has their own preference, right? And everyone will say, this is my God's better than yours, right? I'm not going to say my God is better.
My God's correct. It's not like my God's better, it's my God is right.
As in better, as in I have a more correct truth than you, right?
Okay.
Yes, you can debate that all you want. But at the end of the day, we all have our own preferences of what we think is God. It's not our own God, but it's what we think is God. And I don't think that will be proven until the day we eventually find out if there is a God or not.
It's just because, you made the argument of the probability of God existing. And it's better to live one's life believing God exists as opposed to dying and realising,
well, if God is all merciful, as it says in many religions, and omniscient and omnipotent.
Not to my kind, the Christian God. I'm an atheist. I'm screwed. So it's.
Don't you think that
is an intermediate judgment?
On a different.
Is it a final judgment?
But the thing is,
it's only when you make a final judgment that God can punish you. If Jesus Christ came down one day to return to the earth, and you said, and you said to him, I don't believe in what you preach, and I reject you. That is a final judgment you've made.
But the thing is, I won't be punished based on final judgment.
You will.
No. What if later he then was like, oh, actually?
But the thing is,
too late. You casted your final judgment.
It is too late.
But you just said God's all merciful. God's all merciful until you make that final judgment.
But if you
and then you're straight.
Satan before our life. Satan, right? In Christian theology, God presented his plan for the earth.
Flooding it. Sorry, continue.
Oh, I think it is. He presented his plan, and Satan rejected that plan. He said it was a bad plan. People want to follow my plan instead, right?
And then for defying God's will, he was cast.
Satan made a final judgment. It's extremely difficult, and I don't think we are in a position to make a final judgment. But he did make a final.
Why did God not try and convince him? Why was the immediate action therefore
he did. There was a battle. There was a war. There was.
Do you believe in purgatory? Do you believe that people are not necessarily? I mean, they are judged, but they're given time
to reflect
to get to heaven. I believe if I was to believe in God, which I am more agnostic than religious, I would believe that there is a purgatory and a heaven, and people go to purgatory and they're judged, and then they have time to for God to forgive them and for them to repent.
Yeah, but that's great until you realise why purgatory exists. And it's not said anywhere in the Bible. It's not said anywhere in the Bible.
No,
you can interpret it.
It doesn't matter. The Bible is not necessarily what religion is.
But it's the only real evidence we have. If people in a lot of people look at the Bible as material evidence of their faith, of the manifestation.
If you say God is supremely merciful, He knows, He's very forgiving, etc., etc. then you can sort of extrapolate the existence of such realm, because why would he damn you to hell, or why would he not forgive you?
Why would he damn you to hell full stop?
No, but
If he's so merciful.
Exactly. That's
I mean,
why
hell
I'm
is
saying,
a pretty shitty time.
That's why I'm saying that it's
Maybe
more
to
logic
give
to say that
mercy,
there is a
someone has to
purgatory
learn
and a heaven.
From their mistakes.
Oh, so they have to burn for eternity. I can't think, even Hitler,
So do you think?
I cannot think of Hitler burning for eternity. I can't think of a single human, no matter what they've done, that deserves to burn for eternity for all time.
I agree
But
with you on
There
that.
is a point where you
specific
say,
belief.
enough.
That is a belief. There
Yeah,
is
but
no. Again, like everything in religion is a belief, but many of these beliefs change. You know, in the idea of hell is widely considered that like it was created because the church wanted money from people, so they wanted to
Purgatory
scare
was
them.
created, yes. Purgatory was created
it
so
was
they could take
hell.
money from people.
So therefore,
Uh-huh.
many people nowadays decide to believe in purgatory, which is not damning someone to burn in a fiery sulphury pit. It's where you go to reflect on your sins.
But is that trying to rationalise a faith?
In my
which
religion, we
isn't,
believe that.
but is that
I don't think that's
for me? That's trying to
that makes
rationalise
a
a
lot more
faith,
sense.
which you're basically.
Well, do you believe there's good and evil? Do you believe there's a
No,
right
I
and
believe
wrong?
there's no such thing as definitive
Well,
good
then,
and definitive evil.
and in religion they do.
Because the
religion
thing is-
believes that.
thing is,
and that's
something
where
even
that's
to-
where you draw the line. Is that
For example-
the atheism does not believe that.
No,
It
because
doesn't believe
but the
in
problem
morality.
exists where, for example, there's Western values, which I've been brought up on.
Mhm.
For example, we'll take this one: child marriage is evil. Yeah, we'll take that. We all agree with that. Child marriage is evil. Forcing children to marry.
I don't know about evil, but yeah.
Yeah, it's not
It's
right.
morally wrong.
I
Yeah,
wouldn't go as
it's
far as
morally
that. It's
wrong.
Morally wrong.
Immoral.
Immoral, fine. However, in Eastern cultures, that's perfectly acceptable. I could talk to the same room and everyone would say, yep, fine, let's prove it, because they've been conditioned to believe so. So to take a moral standing, to put a prescribed set of laws, and say they're universal across all cultures, I think is wrong. What's morally good and what's morally evil to me is influenced by my culture, is influenced by how I've been brought up.
Mhm.
That is not the same as someone who's been brought
The
up in
difference
China.
is people nowadays, especially, not so much in the past, people have the choice on which religion they are.
No, they don't.
Join. Yes, they do.
No, Muslim,
I mean,
Islam,
yes, no, I'm saying
Apostasy
in
is
our
death.
culture, we can choose. Like, I'm not saying all cultures in general. I'm saying that if we have the choice to follow these rules, then surely they aren't prescribed on us.
Mhm.
And a lot of cultures they are, because I'm not sure why. Because they think that that is
because religion is a
definitively
tool
right.
of control. That's
Yeah.
why.
Well-
If you force everyone to
Shall we
believe
move on to
the
some
same
philosophical arguments?
Let's do that.
Let's bring in more.
I said I'd be
more
silent.
key
Okay,
points.
let's
I
bring in
haven't
some more
succeeded.
people. So, one of the arguments actually for the existence of God is put forward by William Paley, and this is the design argument.
Oh.
And he basically says that everything that is designed has 5 features of design, and that is that it has moving parts, or it moves in regular motion, has multiple parts, has the right materials, has a purpose, and if a part is removed, then it wouldn't work. He
If you
believes.
remove someone's arm, it would still work.
No, but it wouldn't be.
Well, because it was meant to
I don't
work.
know. Well, yeah, but someone's arm. We're not created by human. Well, no, technically
Well,
we are, but we're not.
God created man.
Okay,
There's
hold
arm.
on.
Fine. Yeah.
That's the thing. His argument isn't very strong.
Yeah.
And he basically says, well, the world and the universe all hold these things, so therefore, surely that is evidence for a creator. Like, if you found a watch
Is
on the
this
floor,
the
you'd know it was created.
teleological argument? It's like,
I can do-
without something cannot be
Yeah,
created
no, it
without a
is,
creator. Yeah.
And,
Yeah, I know this.
the problem, as you've already highlighted, is that his 5 features don't really make any sense. For example, you could remove a human spleen and they'd still be...
Spleen.
It doesn't do anything.
It's a funny word.
Is this a spleen? I think it's just...
This is a funny word, yeah.
And also, there are things in history that, like, basically, he's saying that if you come across something and it looks like it's been designed, then you can know something about the designer. Let's
Yeah.
say, for example, you were walking down a path and you so happen to find a hair on the ground, and you picked that hair up and you compared it. You thought, this has features of design, but you can't tell anything about the person who this hair came from.
You can
Except
tell
for
the
the
colour
hair.
of
Can I
the
just
hair.
make the argument that if the
And whether
argument's
it's curly.
true, God is a really bad designer. I'm sorry, but we have this thing in us called an appendix, which at the moment doesn't really serve a purpose, but it can explode at any point and kill us.
The male nipple.
The male nipple.
And there's also there's literally a parasite. There's literally a parasite in the Nile.
That's what.
There's a parasite in the Nile which lives off
Stephen
climbing
Fry.
outside of digging into humans' eyes, children's eyes, and then bursting out of the eye, usually rendering the child blind. I mean, if God designed that, then I refuse to believe He's merciful.
It's said that he designed, in Paley's argument, he thinks that God designed the universe and the world, so therefore that kind of gives rise to things like evolution. Because God isn't directly creating.
But God is all.
I think-
create every person like
I think he
this
did.
now.
But God is
create
all-knowing, so
the
he
people.
inevitably knows everything. He knows all that will be, all that is to come, all that has been. Therefore, He knows the results of
No,
evolution.
that
He
is
knows what
I
He
actually
created.
asked my RE teacher a similar question because he was religious, and he sort of said, and I was saying like, why would you give consciousness to people that could then go against you, and stuff like that? And he was saying that pretty much God wants us to be our own people and have our own choices, and we don't necessarily have to be faithful.
That's
And
actually.
then he like tests us
Free agency.
with these things.
And what's the punishment?
Hold on. This is actually linking.
So He
I'll
tests us
strengthen-
and then
hold on.
punishes
leave
us
it.
in the
I'll
worst
strengthen
way.
Beth's argument because this is actually a philosophical argument, and this actually, like,
I
if I
don't know.
was to be religious, I would believe in this argument, and this is put forward by a philosopher called Hick, and he basically says that
Fuck
Hold on.
me.
Where did Ash go?
Hick basically says that
Oh, don't
Finn,
hijack
shut
this.
Hick basically says that the world and basically this is a solution to the problem of evil, and I'm sure you all know what problem of evil is. Like, how can evil exist if God is all loving, all good, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And Hick basically says that the world that God has created is actually a veil of soul making. And what this means is it's like providing us with the right conditions in order to develop our souls. So he allows us to make mistakes, such as parents allow their kids to make mistakes in order to teach them a lesson. And the reason why there is unnecessary suffering is because he believes that there is this thing called epistemic distance, which is basically how far you are away from God. So, like, how much faith you need to still believe in Him. So he believes that the only way for your belief in God to be justified is that you need to have faith in God. So, and he also believes that it's much like purgatory, where everyone gets to heaven eventually, even people such as Hitler. However, it takes them a long time to reach heaven.
So
It's like the story of the egg, where like the soul like grows as it lives different lives.
So, in essence, say a child is born in Africa to very poor conditions. That means that their soul is far away from God.
Not necessarily, because that is not caused by themselves.
Yes.
The reason why there are extreme suffering in the world,
Mhm.
this is according to Hick, I don't necessarily believe this, but I think this is quite a nice way, is that he said, well, let's say you take away the most extreme suffering in the world, then the next most extreme suffering is going to be extreme, and you keep on doing that until, like, stubbing your toe is like the worst thing to happen.
So it's like
I mean, it is.
the extent to which we believe this is extreme suffering is not really the case. Is that what it's like?
I continue
Yeah.
to struggle with the whole idea of suffering. So I mean, God is all powerful, and He's all loving, all knowing, what have you. And yet He sentences us to a trial which we don't need to go through. He could just allow us all
Why
into
don't we
heaven.
need to go
He
through
also
it?
let his kid die.
Yeah, he could all.
No, but that's
Yeah, but
not- that's part of him.
Because
He
the only way
is
to solve
Jesus.
human suffering is a human sacrifice. Why can't you just absolve human suffering
Also,
anyway?
Jesus wasn't
if
evil.
Jesus
If He's all powerful, why can't He
supposedly
just do
died
it?
for our sins,
What limits
why
God's
are we
power?
Still
That would
having
defeat the whole purpose.
What's the purpose?
Because I don't know.
Wouldn't you
What's
the
have,
purpose?
like, absorbed
To,
that
to
is-
go through a trial and test.
But
of
He could
our
just
souls
create
and
us
our-
perfect, and then there's
We aren't perfect.
No, but why would He
We are
create
not
us
perfect.
perfect? If He
Because He loves
created-
His children.
Listen, if He created us so that we always chose the right thing. Let's say there was a decision.
If you think love is
You
perfection,
could either do this or this.
it's a
One of
very
them's bad, one of them's good. If
cold
He
way
chose
of
us to
looking at
do
it
the
now.
good thing all the time, we wouldn't be free.
But the
would we?
difference being being free and utilizing our free will, we are sentenced to punishment for making use of free will to deny God.
If
that
we
isn't
didn't have free will, what's the point?
Well,
Why
I don't
would He
see.
create
I don't
us
see the
if we
point in
didn't have
creating
free
free
will?
will is if in defying free will, if in defying God's laws, He punishes you for it. What's the point of free will if He's just going to punish
He doesn't
us?
punish you.
I'm sorry, but in the Bible, it's pretty clear eternal
Yeah, in
damnation.
the Old Testament.
I'm sorry, but in most, for example, in America, quite a lot of religious sects still believe in the whole thing of fire.
Yes, but
You
the
can't
thing
just
is-
absolve that. You can't just get rid of that. That's still part of Christian dogma.
I know. I'm not saying that isn't, but there are also parts of Christianity that don't believe in that. So you can say, yes, I disagree with this part, but I agree with this part, and that's where denominations come
argue
in.
for and against God when there are so many different variations.
Exactly.
So it's because some sort of beliefs in like certain gods can really easily be discounted, but then other ones not so much.
I just don't see why the trial even needs to exist.
It's not so much a trial. It's just, I think he gives us free will, because otherwise, if we didn't have free will, then there would be no point in
we'd be
creating
slaves.
it. Because, like, what's the point? So, by creating free will, he allows us to make the right decisions, or a decision for us, in order to reach heaven, or to go to purgatory and realise our mistakes in order to get.
So essentially, you have free will, but if you make the wrong decision, then you're punished for it. So essentially, he wants us to make one decision.
You're not punished, you're forgiven.
Well, after burning in fire, because I believe in
No.
burning in fire.
Well, yeah,
I personally,
okay.
because I look at scripture. The thing is,
Well, scripture, still, there are parts of
Well, yeah,
scripture
but
that say
I
that
You're
just-
arguing against something you say you believe in.
I look at the fact that
That's not how it works.
the thing is, Christianity legitimizes itself, and it has for all time since its existence, by saying we are one of the oldest faiths. That's one of its ways of giving it legitimacy. However, you've got to remember, for hundreds of years, for the majority of Christianity's life, they have followed Scripture. We are living in a very slight time in history where people are starting to move away from it. So I look at Christian history.
Because people are questioning it, and what you're doing is you're using old to combat the question.
Because the thing is,
which
the old
not
is
right.
still believed, and the old is still used as evidence. You can't look at the Bible and use certain bits
No,
of
but
evidence
people
and
have
discount the
realised,
rest.
why would God punish you? And they're like, well, obviously he's all good, and we're like, wait, hold on.
Did God
people
create the
create
Bible?
this?
Well,
No.
God influenced its creation.
He influenced its creation, but who created the Bible?
It was filtered through
People,
man.
yeah.
But,
Filtered through
but the
man.
problem
Is
exists.
man perfect?
No, they want
But-
money.
No.
Yeah, but the problem exists.
Hence the reason.
Yeah.
You cannot say the Bible. You can't say if the Bible says this, then it's.
Is it
definite.
the closest word to God? Is it the closest way of learning
Yes,
God's
closest
will?
word, but is it the best
So,
word?
is it the
Answer
so
first.
what's the best word? What's the best way of learning God's will? How can I
As
learn
far
God's
as
will?
we have it, the Bible.
The Bible. So if that's the best way of learning God's will, then
It's the best
Hold on
way.
a second.
Is it the definitive way? No, because
Hold
we don't
on a
have a
second.
definitive way.
But
Right,
have
James has got a
arguments.
point. Shut up. I have arguments here. Right, so you've got two types of knowledge. You have posteriori and a priori. A posteriori is knowledge through experience. A priori is knowledge without experience. So innate knowledge that you're born with or whatever. People such as Descartes provide an argument called the ontological argument. This is only a variation of the ontological argument. And this aims to use, I can't remember which knowledge. I think this is a priori. A priori knowledge to definitively say God exists. This is based on our definition. So he says that God is a supremely perfect being. He holds all perfections. That's what God is. Existence is a perfection because you can't be perfect if you don't exist. So therefore God exists. So without using scripture, he's tried to prove God's existence.
Yeah, but on what grounds does he say God's perfect?
Because
Where is that
this is
rooted?
where hold on. Cosmological argument. This is the hold on, is that
So
cosmological?
I think that's rooted
Yeah,
in
I think
scripture.
it's-
God's perfection is rooted in
Hold on,
scripture.
hold just a second. There is I think it's maybe another version of the ontological argument, where basically if you can conceive of the greatest possible being, then he must exist. There can't be anything greater, and there must be a greatest being, so therefore that is God.
But why must there be a greatest being?
Because there has to be.
Why?
Because if you can think of it, then it exists.
Can a
So
government-
I can think of
No,
I can
I
think of
mean,
Hulk, and it's something
Yeah,
to
that
exist.
exists in a possible
Can a government
world.
can a government run without a leader?
Possible world theories.
Well, they can run
He's
by.
not particularly the best leader, but can a government run without a leader?
They can run with a council of
In
people in a
metaphysical
direct
physics.
democracy. So yeah, technically,
Council
yes.
of people, but who makes the final decision?
Hulk does exist.
The majority
In
of
a
the people.
direct democracy, it's
Three
That,
times
that in
the
itself
world.
is an embodiment of a leader, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's a collective body of people.
Collective body.
It's
of
not one
people.
single person.
They're all leaders though.
Even if you have the they're all
So,
leaders.
so am I a subject? Am I a subject without my knowledge?
Yeah.
Without my consent, I am now a subject, and I have to obey the laws of someone who I have no belief in. Doesn't sound like a merciful
You
God
could,
to me.
you could.
Does not sound like a merciful God to me. To be perfectly honest with you, it sounds like someone who's bending me to his will, and is forcing me to be a such slave without my
Really?
permission. Yeah.
Should we get
Sorry.
someone else's view?
Yes.
What do you think? Or Kane?
Yeah, I think
I'm not competing with any of this.
Connor has
Oh
to
yeah,
say
I
that.
forgot. Connor, you haven't even given your
Yes.
opening.
Religious, but probably to most people's surprise, I do believe in a God. I don't know what it is. I do not know how to explain it, but I know that through a lot of hardships in my life, I found faith in something that made me feel more comfortable in my life, and perhaps that is because it gave me answers to questions I was too afraid to find myself.
That's why I
Um,
to believe.
Yeah, I it's not out of logic, it's out of sheer comfort, and it helped me through times, and I feel now in a position where I do have some extent of faith. I do not agree with the power that religion can take from people and grant to people who do not deserve it. I do not believe or agree with the abuse of that power. I hate the amount of war and conflict religion causes, and I very much disagree with the way that many religious ideas and groups feel they can punish people for their differing beliefs. However, I think that certainly, to the way I've felt it, faith is a very, very supporting thing. And if people feel a sense of comfort and aid from faith and belief, I feel it is a very, very important thing to have in your life.
That's why I that was really good. That's why I think that rather than tackling whether God does exist and all of these like proof-based theories, it's usually down to the individual. And if, let's say, I've heard, I can't remember who it was, but I was talking to someone and their nan was dying, and she wasn't scared at all because she had faith and she knew, or she believed that she was going to God. And if there is any way in which we can have comfort in the hardest of times, or we can have hope and faith that there is someone watching over us and guiding us, then surely that is a good thing to believe in. Also, the Bible and many religious texts do give us guidance into the right way to act, and this isn't often prescribed to us. It's just a good guidance on how to be a good person in the world, and that's so. If you strip back all of the feathering around religion, then really you've got a good set of morals that many people have agreed on, but you can choose not to follow them if you so desire. And I think that the faith and also the ability to follow a nice set of rules and to go through life believing in that is a good thing.
I
agree.
think my only issue with it. No, of course, the comfort argument. No, I definitely not my place to tear that down. If religion provides someone comfort, that's completely their choice, and everyone's entitled to their faith, 100%. My problem exists when people use that faith, like you said, for war. People use that faith.
I don't agree with that.
Well, yeah, but when the problem exists when you believe something which has no evidence, when you can't have a discussion which is based on evidence, and you believe your faith is 100% right, by definition you believe everyone else is wrong. And when you believe everyone else is wrong, that will cause conflict.
Many people will believe in God just for the idea of comfort, and they won't think. If you bring up other faiths, they will also say, I mean, there are extremists in these areas saying how your religion's wrong, I don't like you, get out.
Well, it's not even your religion's wrong, it's just saying, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. My faith is the problem is you can't, in my opinion, and I believe Connor's way is probably the best way of saying I believe there is something. I'd much prefer that. I much prefer it to remain anonymous. I think acknowledging that there's a presence, acknowledging that something's bring comfort in, I believe is the best way of doing it. But I believe when you prescribe it to Christianity or Islam, Hinduism, whatever, that comes with certain expectations.
I believe that religion itself shouldn't. I don't think there should be clear borders between each religion. I think that you should believe what you want to believe, whether that's parts from different religions or it's a denomination of a specific religion. Just whatever you're comfortable with.
Whatever floats your boat.
I think on a personal level, like I'm happy with the idea that there is something, perhaps a way to put it is more powerful than me, or something looking over me, and I am happy in what I'd believe that thing to be and how that thing may help me or try to guide me, but I'm still free to make my own choices. I can make my own choices, and if they are to judge me for that, I don't mind. I've made mistakes, and if people are to judge me like that, they're in their right to do it. However, in established religion, I do not agree with the fact that people should be able to tell you how to live your life.
Yeah.
If I make a mistake, judge me for it. You tell me that I'm wrong, fine, but you do not have the right to tell me how I should change and do this in a certain way according to rules that you yourself do not fully understand or you can justify.
The difference with religion and any other debate is that in a debate, yes, it's belief, and you can try and sway people to believe what you believe. However, yeah, there is evidence on both sides, but some could argue that there is evidence for religion as well. But by having a debate with a subject that isn't religious, I don't know, but with religion, I don't think you should be able to debate about your own belief.
I think I mean this for me it's a personal thing in terms of that I have my personal philosophy is that no belief of mine will be made based on no evidence. Any belief of mine has to hold up to scrutiny.
Like
That's
you
my
don't get
personal
people, for example, if you have an extrovert and an introvert, you don't get these people like battling over one another saying you should be more outgoing.
That's because extroverts and introverts don't cause wars.
Exactly. So why is it that religion causes wars?
Because as I said,
it's
Organised
part.
religion.
I know. It should. That's what I'm saying. You should break down.
I do not like the way established religion so dominantly guides people's lives, and it does make me quite angry. However, all I can say from my perspective, because if our argument is about does a God exist, I think in some form yes. From the way I've experienced things and got through harder parts of my life so far, I think yes, something has helped me. I think, is belief in God a bad thing? No, not at all. I totally agree with people who do, and they are in their right to do so entirely. However, the establishment and the abuse of power that has come from that belief is terrible.
Exactly. Yeah.
Something so comforting and supportive has turned into something that actually very dominantly affects our lives, whether we believe it or not. Yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah, I mean, the prime example of that was the fact that in the past people did use it to get money, and they still do. And as soon as money enters the equation, it seems that humans disregard everyone's beliefs, and we just descend into animals.
as I say, my gripe is never with someone's faith, because everyone's entitled to believe what they want to believe as long as it doesn't hurt or infringe upon anyone else's rights. However, I completely agree with Connor. When you turn that belief into a tool for war, and you turn that belief into something to mobilise the masses, I believe that's a problem, because then you end up having a hierarchy there. You end up having someone who can tell you that you're living in sin. I mean, and again, Stephen Fry, when he said the Catholic Church, do you know what I mean? People have come up to him from the Catholic Church, senior members, and said, you are living in sin, you're homosexual, you are innately evil. That is a horrible thing to say, to call someone innately evil for something they can't choose. And that is where I believe faith becomes dogma. That's when faith, the innocent and beautiful belief in something greater than yourself that guides and helps you, which no one should try to tear down, that then turns into a military, or it turns into a government. And that's
you
what's wrong.
look in this room, you've got a perfect example in here of how faith can help people. You know, look, me, Carl and Gareth, 3 very close friends, or 3 very different and defined beliefs.
Yeah.
Now, no matter how seemingly aggressive or loud we can get in here, it's very clear that we all respect each other. So why in establishment is that not seen anymore? Or ever, in fact?
People play on
Because we see each other
other
as equals.
people's gullibility, and how is that a word, gullibility?
Yeah.
It is now, sir.
People basically play on the fact that people will believe whatever they tell them,
That's an evil thing to do.
And people,
That evil.
people like magicians use it all the time.
Yeah.
And that's in telling
It's
people about anything. That was a practice of the Christian Church for centuries. I mean, the Christian Church was built upon the idea that you'd have a few priests who could understand Latin and could read the Bible, or understood ancient Hebrew and could read the Bible, and then they would dictate to the peasantry who were illiterate.
Whatever
They could
they
say
wanted to
anything
hear.
they wanted, and they'd be believed, and they did. And so, odds being, this is quite interesting when looking at it, the Bible may not be a true representation or a true translation of the Hebrew, of the actual ancient
Even
Hebrew.
the Bible, even if you could translate it precisely, in the times it was written, by the people it was written, you have to question the credibility of, the bias. And that's why I don't believe that the Bible is a very good way of believing in God. I believe it's good in some ways of choosing what the right thing is to do in a specific situation in terms of the stories in the Bible. But if you're using it as a definitive piece of evidence for God, then I don't think that's... I don't know. It's my belief.
I
don't
believe the
that-
Bible should be seen as a great piece of literature, because only a fool would say it isn't. I mean, it is in terms of when it was written, it's a masterful work of literature, and it's very eloquent in terms of the ancient Hebrew. But I believe that to apply rules written 2,000 years ago in the Middle East to modern day Britain and Western society, I believe is a tremendous miscalculation.
I think we'd only know that if we never had that. If we never had what the Bible said, how would we know?
Well, animals follow very similar precepts. For example, the whole thing of do not kill. Chimps in groups do not kill.
But we are the prominent
Unless-
race on the earth, aren't we?
well,
The human race.
yeah, but that's nothing to do with God. That's unless
Could be if God created the
that,
earth.
yeah, but the thing is, if you put a human naked in a cage with a tiger, the tiger will win 10 times out of 10.
Right.
We are not perfect. The only reason we're here is because we've got the cognitive ability.
We need to wrap it up now.
Yes, go.
But
Bloody
was-
brilliant, that one.
That was good.
Interesting. It's
Finn
the
nearly
longest
destroyed
episode,
it.
I think. It's 43 minutes long.
Why did Finn
That's
come in?
gonna-
Finn
and
just came in and
luckily,
just trying to
Only
destroy it.
2 edits as well. So
Oh, I think it was more than that.
It's
no,
known as a
only
sin.
2. One at the start
Oh, it's
and
gonna
one in
fall
the
down.
middle.
Yeah, there was.
There was a few.
There was a few.
Yeah, that's
under the
fine.
breath.
I saw a Muslim expert.
I've really looked through that one carefully because if you missed anything, then there's going to be a slag.
I don't. We were pretty quiet.
Anyway,
Anus.
Yeah. Oh.
thank you for listening to this episode
Anus.
of the Philosopod. You can find us on YouTube. Just type in the Philosopod, or you can email us at philosopod@gmail.com
Follow us on Twitter.
with any potential topics.